Then they call us right after something crisis happens. Now there's a DUI. Now there's a divorce. Now there's a job loss. Now there's an overdose. Now they're panicked, and we get that crisis call, and they say, okay, we need you today. Now, mind you, the loved one's been using for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but today is the day we need you.
I'm Flindt Anderson, founder of PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need. Welcoming to Don't Hide the Scars. You're renowned for so many different things, and we're going to get into all of it. Dr. Cali Estes, thank you for joining the founder of PAIN, Flindt Anderson, who is sitting to my right and looking dapper today, and myself, Jason LaChance, on Don't Hide the Scars.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate to be here.
Oh, hey, our pleasure. And I wanted to dig in, because we really focus on who we serve, parents and addicts in need. And I was pondering this, like, when maybe is a good time in your perspective? I mean, you've done so many interventions, helps turn around so many lives. When is that time that maybe a family makes that call, that it is an intervention is the path that they need to go?
So we get the call after a couple things have happened. The first one is they have done a simple intervention. They said to their loved one, hey, you're using drugs, you need to go to rehab. And of course, their loved one said, me? I'm not using drugs. There's something wrong with you, not me. And that never works. They say, okay, now what? So then they watch the show Intervention. And I love when they do this and they decide they're going to stage the whole thing by themselves. We can do this, right? They did it on the show. We can do it. So they watch enough stuff. They go to Google, they go to YouTube, and they set up this intervention. And they have mom, dad, sister, brother, auntie, uncle, uncle's first cousin, sister-in-law's brother's cousin, sister. And they have 20 people in this room, right? And they figure it out. We're going to have lunch and we're going to have coffee and we're going to have snacks and we got this. And someone brings the loved one in and they're all sitting there and they're like, hi. And the loved one goes, oh, hell no. And they're gone. Yep. Now they sit there and they go, well, it worked on the show. We did what they did. Why didn't it work? Right? Then they call us right after something crisis happens. Now there's a DUI. Now there's a divorce. Now there's a job loss. Now there's an overdose. Now they're panicked, and we get that crisis call, and they say, okay, we need you today. Now, mind you, the loved one's been using for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but today is the day we need you. So it's sort of different for every family, but that's the progression. They go through these steps. And then when it's like the bottom out happens, they say, okay, obviously Becky, Bobby, Johnny hit their bottom. Now we need help.
That is exactly correct. I could not have said it any better myself.
So Flindt, in your experience, for people that have reached out to you for help when you've done interventions, is it like spot on what Cali is saying?
Identical. Absolutely identical. In fact, it's interesting you say that. I had a call this weekend from a person who is screaming at, this is the addict, who's screaming out, Flindt, I need help. I need help. Blah, blah, blah. And this is a family that I've been dealing with for about 10 years, and I haven't heard from this individual in maybe 7 or 8 years. And it was just typical. And what I wanted to say, but I didn't, was, where were you guys 7 years ago? You didn't listen to anything that I said. That's what I wanted to say. You didn't listen to anything I said. Not that I'm Karnak, right? but I can.
There's a reference our younger audience.
Our younger audience will not understand that one. Okay. But it's like I called it, and we all can call it. Especially if we are recovering addicts ourselves, like I am. Come on, guys. I mean, we gave you every every piece of great information and how this thing was going to play out. And then, of course, the magic question is that I always have to ask, especially these days, is what type of insurance do you have? And then he tells me it's a governmental aid insurance. And it's like, man, I'm sorry, we don't take it. This place doesn't take it. That place doesn't take it. And if you're lucky enough to even get somebody to answer a phone on the other side, it's going to take you 3 to 7 days to even get into the place. So, Cali, if you're lucky, right? Yes, ma'am, you nailed it. Let me tell you.
Yeah, our country, I'm kind of disgusted with our country because we send so much money in relief aid overseas, and we have such an epidemic here. People need services, they need rehab, they need mental health services, and we can't provide them. Correct. Every answer is, well, you don't have the right insurance. Well, you can't afford good insurance. Well, an addict that's using isn't working. They're not going to get work benefits. So they get, state aid. Okay, well, we should have state-run programs that are just as good as those 5-star luxury rehabs that are 120 grand a month. We should have comparable services for everybody, and we don't.
Yes. Again, totally agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. I'm watching prior to the election, and I'm watching what everybody, by the way, very little discussion on the fentanyl crisis, very little discussion, no discussion on treatment, right? And I'll just say one of the candidates was talking about how, everybody's going to have insurance and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, wait a minute. This isn't about everybody having insurance. This is about everybody having the right insurance.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
And having the services that we can sustain the amount of people that need the services. I don't know if you know this, but I was battling about 6 years ago with intervention. They were saying every interventionist needed to have a bachelor's degree. And I battled that. And I said, absolutely not, because intervention is frontline. We're going down to street level. We're grabbing people and putting them in treatment. Nobody has a bachelor's. We don't need a bachelor's. Right. What we need is to know where to send them. And we don't have that. We have a big gap in our healthcare system.
Absolutely, we do. Like I said, I just couldn't agree more with what you're saying right now. Yep.
Well, and it's interesting that battle continues to, have that access as a part of it, because there was such an argument, and granted, it moved forward where mental health services have to be a part of it. How is addiction not a part of that? Like, oh yeah, like you were in a crisis that, especially now with fentanyl, and we've seen it over 100,000 people a year consistently for 5 years now, going on 5 years at least. Like, how is that not a part of this? And how is that not immediately addressed and rolled into a part of it? And of course, it's always at the end of it, as you mentioned, we got so much money going elsewhere but this country, and it comes back to that money. And it's sad because these are human lives, and we continue to lose over 100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that doesn't sink in.
I know.
It's not addressed. And I think the other thing is all of our states get millions of dollars for drug and alcohol and mental health. What happens is they leave it up to the state where to send it. And Washington did this a few years ago. They got all this money and they said, okay, we could do something with this. And Washington has a lack of really good services. Washington State, not DC. Right. And I thought, oh, great. They're finally going to put up some good rehabs. They're going to put up some good mental health. What did they do? They sent it to the Department for Homeless Shelter. Okay. And they put up a bunch of homeless shelters, and it took them 3 years to even build these little tiny houses. And I'm thinking, how does it take that long? It doesn't take, why are we stalling? Why are things not happening? And it's frustrating to me because I get the calls like you do. Hey, I need help. Okay, great. Where are we going to send you? Well, I have no money. Right. I have no insurance. And now I'm going, by the time I get you a state bed, you're going to be gone because you're detoxing and you're sick and then what? So it's this revolving door concept. And for some reason, you're right. It's not on anyone's radar. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. You chose to use drugs. So therefore you're the problem, not the solution. We're never in solution phase, and we need to be.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com.
I think it just comes down to this. It comes down to, I own a treatment center, and the reality is the insurance companies have all of us buy the you-know-whats. They do. They pay when they want. It's a minimum of 4 months, at least it is here in California and the companies that we're dealing with, 4 months before we even see a nickel of what we build on someone. And it can take up to a year and over a year in some cases, to where we haven't seen the monies that we build on one single policy, and so at least I think at the last numbers, I think in 17 or 18, there was like 15,000 treatment centers. Then it dropped to 12. The latest numbers are they think it's going to drop to 9 because unless you have such an influx of cash, it is so difficult to the money train keeps going, right? And so insurance companies, they're lobbyists, all of it. The politicians that are behind it with these lobbyists, I just don't know why. And I mean, I think I know why, but it just doesn't make any sense to me why lawmakers, policymakers cannot get this to change. We have to be able to stay in business in order to help people. And I'm not saying a free gift. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm saying do business like we're supposed to do business with you. It's a pretty simple ask, plus try getting when you're starting a place, or if you've got renewals, just waiting for the state to come out takes months and months sometimes. So this whole system is just in the crapper, in my opinion, and I don't see it getting out of it anytime soon.
I completely agree with you. And I mean, just take a drive by the old Cecil Hotel in LA. That's all you have to do. Yeah. And you will see Tent City. It's Skid Row. Right. And it should not be like that. We should not have people living in tents. We should not have people living in cars because they can't afford apartments. Like everything is just the trickle down effect that in this country, things just aren't right. And instead of politicians saying, hey, we need to get our people handled and our people taken care of, it's always something else. There's always like a new shiny object that's in front of them that isn't any of these real issues. And no matter who we elect, it seems like nobody handles the problem. It's just like we're speaking at the local level, we're speaking at a state level, but we can't get, our tax money to do what it's supposed to do. We can't get the insurance companies to go, hey, we're a revolving door because we can't get paid. Can't get paid, we can't offer services. If you pay us, we can offer services. And hopefully that client won't come through 2, 3, 4, or 5 times because we can offer really good services if you pay us. If you don't pay us, we can't offer services. So It's like this weird loop, but nobody wants to seem to fix it.
Well, again, it's that old saying, you get what you pay for. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. But I also think it does stem from this. I truly believe this, that lawmakers, doctors, families, whoever it is, they don't understand the addict. They don't understand it at all, because the majority of everybody out there still thinks that, and again, I don't even like the term addict, but it's the only one that we've got at this point. they don't understand that not everybody made a choice to go out and use something. That they could have started because of a medical reason. They could have started because of some trauma that has happened to them. There's numerous situations where people have become addicted to a substance simply because of a situation that arose in their life that they didn't have any control over. Now, did there people that make choices? Of course. But until these people understand the process of what an opioid does to one, how dependent somebody can become on it in such a short period of time, therefore leading into the addiction phase, because you have to have more and more and more of that same drug in order so we don't get dope sick, because we're not going to get dope sick under any circumstance. We're just not going to do it. We're going to use whatever it is out there so we don't get dope sick.
So I have an exercise that I use for my clients that I love. So I have a lot of families that say, I don't get why he can't have one drink, or I don't get why he can't just stop using whatever it is. And I'll ask them, do you eat sugar? And I start there. And 99% of the people say, yeah. So, okay, I want you to go completely sugar-free for 2 weeks. And if it's not sugar, it's caffeine. It's one of the two. And occasionally I get the, granola munching mom who's like, well, I eat, vegan, paleo, kosher. I eat super healthy. I don't do any of that. I go to yoga. And I'm like, do you have Amazon Prime? And she'll go, oh, of course. Perfect. Whatever your thing is, you're going to go for 2 weeks without it. So no sugar for 2 weeks. And they'll say, I can do that. That's easy. I got it. Perfect. And I mean, no sugar, no white sugar. You can have fruit, agave nectar, and honey, nothing else. Okay. They go to the grocery store and they're shopping and they realize they have to go around the outside, that up and down the aisles is food-like product. So they call me and they'll be like, there's 30 varieties of yogurt and only one has no sugar. Well, that's the one you buy. Okay, great. I got my yogurt. I got my pasta sauce, no sugar. I'm good to go. And they make their first meal for their family. And I love when there's little kids, because they'll call me and they'll say, nobody ate dinner but me. You're right. Then the next day they go to work and they pack their lunch and they're excited. They have their yogurt with no sugar, and now they have their coffee for the first time with no sugar. It tastes awful. And they eat their little yogurt. It tastes like sour cream. And they go to work and they're like, God, breakfast sucked. And then, lunch comes around. Somebody has pizza. Somebody has Burger King. And they're sitting there with a little green salad with a piece of grilled chicken going, life sucks, right? By dinner, they have a headache. They have a stomach ache. They're tired. They're cranky. Everybody doesn't want to be around them. They're detoxing because sugar and heroin have almost the same chemical makeup. Mm-hmm. By day 3, they call me and they say, listen, I don't know what happened. I found myself in the closet at 3 a.m. with a bag of Oreos. I don't know how I got there. I don't know where the Oreos came from, but I ate the whole bag. And now I feel guilty. I feel shame. I feel remorse. I feel awful. And tomorrow I'm going to get back on the horse and row. And I go, you couldn't go 3 days without sugar. And you want your loved one to go a lifetime without heroin. You couldn't go 3 days. Mm-hmm. And they sit back and they go, this is hard. I say, yeah, that's what you're asking of your loved one. So before I do an intervention, I make them do that. By the time they come to the intervention, that family has compassion, they have understanding, and they don't come in with the you're the addict and you're the problem and you're causing an issue and you. They come in and 9 times out of 10, they go, I'm so sorry. The first time that loved one walks in, and the loved one's like, whoa, where'd this come from? Because I had to go sugar-free and I couldn't make it past 3 days. I now know what you're going through. And it creates this bond of, wow, I understand addiction, because they don't. They blame everybody but themselves. And when they're asked to do one task, they can't make it. They can't make it a week. And most of them, I'll say, now I want you to go sugar-free forever. And they look at me and they're like, no cake? No cake at Christmas? No cookies?
No Disneyland churros?
No wedding? Like, well, what do I do when I'm sad? I can't have Ben and Jerry's? No, it's done. No sugar. What about my coffee? Well, you're going to have black coffee. Well, that's awful, And they start to understand addiction. And some of them will go sugar free and they'll break the connection and they'll come back and they'll go, I feel like $1,000,000. And I'll say, yeah, that's the connection.
Yep.
Everybody's addicted to something. So when I work with the family, all I say is, what's your vice? You have one. You don't think you do. What do you have? Mm-hmm. And then I want you to see what it's like without it. And if you can do that, now you have the right to ask your loved one to quit heroin or crack or cocaine or alcohol, because now you understand what that chemical, emotional, mental connection is, because you didn't until you went through it yourself. And then you're like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is great.
Pass that along. That is my secret sauce.
I'm writing that stuff down as we're going, because that is wonderful.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction. Of course, I've not done any interventions, only been around esteemed interventionists. But it's true. And I think hopefully more people can start to have that recognition that we are all addicted to something. We can call it a vice, whatever it is. And yes, maybe it's not leading us down that path of destruction, but it sure does hinder us from something else. I know I spend way too much time where it's like, forget this day, and I watch YouTube for like 2 hours or something. It's like, how did 2 hours go? How did 2 hours go? Mm-hmm. Granted, it used to be, oh my God, I got to the bar at 6 o'clock. I said I would leave at 8 o'clock, and now it's 2 a.m. and I've closed it down. So, yeah, it's not the same path of destruction, but it's still that hindrance. It's still something that I have to learn to continually check.
Yeah. And most people don't realize they have something. Even I had one attorney that was doing an intervention on his son, and he said, I have no vice. I don't. He was in the whole Spartan, Iron Man, whatever. He's like, I eat clean. I don't drink caffeine. I monitor social media, blah, blah, blah. I said, give me your phone. He says, what? I said, give me your phone. He goes, well, why? I said, because I guarantee you everything you have is in this phone. It's your GPS. It's your client system. It's your banking system. It's your texting system. It's your Life 360. Everything you have is in this phone. I said, give me your phone for 2 hours. He said, well, what if the clients call? I said, oh, there's your vice. You're tethered to your phone. Mm-hmm. You don't know how to put it down, and then there's the whole over exercise issue. So then you've got that, you're in the gym 3, 4, 5 hours a day training for the Spartan race. You missed your son's high school graduation because you had a meet you had to go to because there was a medal involved. I'm like, you have a whole nother level of addiction. You think it's healthy. It's not. Right. Anything in excess that takes you away from your family time and your work time is a problem, even if you think it's healthy. Exercise in excess cannot be healthy. So we talk about these things ahead of time, because when they come to the intervention, I want them ready and prepared to understand what we're asking someone to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, again, I've done interventions for quite some time now. And what I try to do is, I always meet with the family first, to see what is going on, get all the gory details and blah, blah, blah. And one of the first things I tell them is I say, look, I said, the first thing we're not going to do is we're not going to write your loved one letters telling them how much you love him or her. I said, they already know that you love them. I want to make this intervention as short and as quick as possible, because I'm going to get right to the point. Now, I'm sure like every other interventionist, I'm going to stay there until I feel that I've either lost this person, they're not going, or I got them in the car and we're ready to go somewhere. And I tell most of the parents, I say, let me do this. You sit there. They already know, as a recovering addict, I already knew what I did, who I did it to, the damage I caused, because I feel that if you keep reminding them of stuff like that, all it did was piss me off, to be honest with you. So I don't know how you do yours, but again, mine, I try to get done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, mine are fast too, depending on if it's invitational or surprise model. So if it's a surprise model, we only do that on someone who's financially dependent on someone else, because we're going to take away. We're taking away your credit card, your car, your phone, all of those things. So that's a little different. I'll have the family bring two things: an empty suitcase and a contractor's trash bag filled with their things.
Yes.
And I'll tell the client, we're only here today to make a decision. We're not going to talk about anything else. I don't address them as the addict. I don't address their addiction as a problem. The decision is real simple. You're either going to go with me to this place where you can have, nice meals and work on yourself and some self-actualization. And we're going to put your stuff in a suitcase and you're going to go, or you're going to take the trash bag and you're going to go down the street. That's it. That's why we're here. And I let the client make the choice. So it's never, do you want this help? Will you accept this help, this gift? Because to me, I'm like, treatment's not a gift. I'm convincing you to do something you don't want to do, which is a sale. Right. So I'm selling you something. I'm taking you away from what you like. I'm throwing you in a place you don't know with a roommate you're not going to like. The food you're probably not going to like. You're not going to want to sit in group. You're not going to feel well. So nothing about that sounds like a gift. So I'm not even going to pretend it's a gift. I'm just going to tell you, these are your two options today. You can do this or you can do that. What would you like to do? And I never ask them, do you want to go? For me, it's always a sale. So it's open-ended questions. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And that's it. And I try to do it within a 3 to 5 hour window. Right. And I sit people very psychologically. So I know who's going to trigger the client, who's going to be, comforting. And I sit them in a pattern. And I allow the triggered person to open the intervention and upset the addict a little bit, because they're already irritated. And I want that to come out at someone, but not me. Right. So I'll let that come out at the loved one, and then I'll kick them out of the room. And when I do that, I usually gain rapport right away, because the client goes, that's mom's favorite. And she just kicked him in the hallway in 3 minutes. Whoa, what just happened?
Like that.
I changed the dynamic. And then I can work with the client. How are you? How's it going? How do you feel? I go right into how do you feel? And I always have candy. A piece of candy? Always have candy. Always have snacks. What do people like? Snacks. So I want you to be comfortable. I can get you comfortable with me. Then you're going to listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
And then when you listen to what I have to say, you're going to decide what you want, what your decision is going to be. And I've only ever had one person take the trash bag down the street. It was funny story. And he knows I tell this story to the day. He's sober. He was 23 in New Jersey, and he was hardcore Italian family. And he wasn't doing nothing, unless he decided he was going to do it. So it was his mom and me and stepdad. And finally, mom said, I've had it. I'm done. You take the trash bag. You're out. I don't care. So, F this, F that, every which direction. So he takes the trash bag, and it's so heavy. And he's 5'7", and this trash bag is as tall as he is. And he's dragging it down the street. And mom and I are peering out the kitchen window, like, trying to see what's going on. And he just pulled the trash bag, and it splits open, and there's clothes everywhere and sneakers everywhere. And he's so mad, and he's throwing his stuff back in the bag, but it's falling out the hole. And we're trying so hard. We're laughing. Tears are coming down our face because we know he's coming back.
Right.
And he comes stomping in the house, and he's like, I need you to pick up my stuff. And we both looked at him at the same time, and we're both 5'2" Italian. And we both went, well, there you are at the exact same time. And he goes, you guys don't take me seriously. And we both bust out laughing, and we're like, you're kidding, right? You want me to go clean that up? And he's like, you guys caused this. And his mom and I just stood there, and we're like, oh my goodness. Like, well, we'll help you, but you have to go to treatment. Right. We will help you if you help yourself. And finally, after like 20 minutes, he's like, fine, someone's going to steal my stuff. All right, if you help me, I'll go. And then we put his stuff in a suitcase. But it was such a funny story because he was adamant. He was not going. He was going to do his thing. And it was so funny to watch because, he's like a 5-year-old having a temper tantrum at Target.
right. I had one similar to that with this young man. Again, it was his mom, his stepdad, and this young man. And so I'm sitting there, and it was a very pleasant intervention with this kid. I've never met a more polite substance abuser, okay, being confronted about treatment. And he was, I don't know, I think he was 21, something like that. And so again, we did the same thing. Hey man, here's your bag, okay? Or you can get in the car with me and go. And so he goes, I need to go to the bathroom. And I said, oh, okay. So he goes to the bathroom. He walks back out, and he called me Mr. Anderson. It wasn't Flint. It wasn't, hey, asshole. It wasn't anything like that, right? He goes, Mr. Anderson, he goes, I would really like to thank you for coming today. He said, and he sticks out his hand, extends his hand out, and he says, but I'm gonna choose to leave. I'm gonna choose to walk down the street.
Oh, wow.
And I went, okay, all right. I said, have a nice life, and hopefully I'll see you again someday. And so this kid toodles off down the street, right? And he's got his bag, no car, no phone, no money, no anything. And his mom starts to freak out. Right. It's like, oh God, there goes my baby. He's going to get killed. He's going to get beat up. He's going to die of an overdose. And I go, relax. I go, this kid, he will not last 3 days, let alone 3 minutes out there. Okay.
Yep.
And sure as the sun rises and sets, okay, I think it was actually the second day, he calls me. He goes, Mr. Anderson, could you come and pick me up? He goes, I think I'm ready. I went, oh, okay. I said, okay. I called his mother, and she goes, hallelujah, yeah. It's just sometimes, look, I love what I do, like you. And a lot of times there's some funny shit that goes on. Okay. When you're dealing with this stuff. Okay. I'm sorry. It's hilarious.
I've got to tell you about my Salvation Army kid. So I did an intervention on a super high-end family, super high-end. And this kid was not going. Very friendly, like your kid, very respectful, but not going. I'll figure my life out. Well, it took everything to get mom to make sure he left with no phone, no credit card, no keys. And he went. And I said to her, when he calls you, and he will within the next couple of hours, you need to give him my number. That's all you do. Here's right. Cali's number. Give her the number. And I gave him my business card. So he kept calling, incessant, calling, texting. So she blocked it. So finally he calls me, and he's like, I hate you. He's 27. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I really think and he went through the whole thing. You're a B, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, and I have nowhere to go. And I said, okay, are you ready to go to treatment? He goes, no, I got to go. He hung up. Okay. Calls me the next day. Now this time he's crying. And I said, what's wrong? Where are you? Well, he said, I went to Salvation Army because I stayed at my friend's house, and they wouldn't let me crash on the sofa because I took their drugs, and they said I couldn't have their drugs, and then they didn't want to feed me. So here I am, and I put all my stuff on the bed. Remember, rich kid, my Air Jordans and my expensive sweatshirt, and I laid everything out, and I went to take a shower, and I come out on my towel, and they stole my clothes. He goes, I'm naked. I have no clothes. All I have is my towel. I'm at the Salvation Army. He's like, you got to come get me. I don't know what to do. And I'm trying not to laugh. And I'm like, oh my Lord, this kid has no street skills at all.
None.
So I went and picked him up, brought his clothes. And he goes, is this how you people live? Because I've been homeless twice. And I'm like, me people? He's like, yeah, you're not rich people. Is this how you guys live? And I said, have you ever been outside of your economic class? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like, call mom and dad. And I'm like, we are not going to a high-end treatment center. We are going to an old school treatment center. And I put him in a real rough one. And he called me and he said, first call was, I hate you. Second call was, this was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Guess what? 5 years later, he's an addictions counselor in a treatment center, in a low income one, pulling people off the street and helping them get sober. Nice. Mom is horrified because she wanted a doctor at 30 or whatever. But I'm like, he's sober. That was the most important thing, is he's sober. He's staying sober. He's successful. He's helping other people. That's a win.
That is a huge win.
Yes.
It's a huge win.
I do want to discuss this, Cali, because I didn't tell you that Flindt does an amazing job with a support group every Wednesday night in person. We do it via Zoom. And it's, it's no knock on Al-Anon or Narcanon, but it's very different. There is a lot of crosstalk. And, how do you how do you encourage those families to let them know, hey, you're on this ride with them too? The whole family needs to recover, because my dad, way back in the day, ended up at the Betty Ford Clinic and another place and another place. And afterwards, there was never anything. All I ever got was, I'm not going to become an addict. 20 something years later, coming up on 4 years of continual sobriety. It would have been helpful. It would have been helpful to have a greater understanding, to maybe be able to cut it off at the pass and know what that asking for help looks like.
I send all my clients my books. So I wrote 2 books. I Married a Junkie. My late husband and I wrote the first book together about his addiction with heroin and being a spouse. So here I am, I got my PhD in clinical psychology. I work with drug addicts. I work with alcoholics. That's what I do. And here's my husband. At that time, I think we were married 6 years, and he starts using heroin. He wasn't a heroin addict. He was in recovery for cocaine. So the first book is about how he's in it and how we pull him out. The second book we were writing when he passed away, and he passed away with 29 days sober off of fentanyl. He was actually microdosing fentanyl during COVID, and it got out of control. So the whole book is about, his version and then my version, what it's like being the spouse trying to pull your loved one out of the fire. Half the time you're in the fire with them. It's an addiction is a family game. Everybody gets to play. So I send them those 2 books so that they can get a feel for, not only what it's like, but also say, okay, she gets this, because she's been on both sides. I'm the addict in recovery off of diet pills and speed. And I had the spouse that passed away from long-term drug use. So it's sort of like I give them those books first, and then they can go, okay, there's a lot going on here. It's not just my feelings are valid, right? My feelings are valid. I know what I'm experiencing. This is out of control. It's chaos. And they start to realize that the client has an addiction. The family member or the enabler is addicted to the addict. And when I get the enabler to realize that your addiction is your son or your daughter, or your husband or whatever, we've got to fix that. We've got to break that. So that's sort of what I do. And then I give them exercises to do. I give them Claudia Black's work, the hero, the enabler, the scapegoat, all of that. And I say, who are you? What role are you playing? What mask do you have on? Because you're going to do that when they're sober. We've got to correct your behavior. My goal is to put them in treatment so they correct their behavior. But while they're gone, we got to delve into what you're doing. Because if we release them back into the wild with you and you haven't done the work, they're going to go right back to using. And that, I learned that the hard way. When my husband got sober the first time, I went right into, okay, great, you're sober. I need you to go to work. I need you to do this, 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 and this. He was high in 2 days. And I'm like, what happened? And I went, oh, yeah, I didn't change my behavior. Even in the industry, I didn't even think about it. So I work with them and I say, you've got to work on how you're going to respond now. And I teach them exercises. I have a whole workbook. There's 45 exercises I give them to the family and to the client. So they're on the same page when they come out, because the client comes out on the pink cloud. I've got this, and it's going to be amazing, and life's going to be great. And then they walk in the front door and there's mom or wifey. I've been here 30 days without your help, and take the baby and clean your room and do this and do this. And why don't you have a job yet? And what do you mean you're on YouTube for 2 hours? The dishes aren't done and the trash isn't taken out, and it's order after order after order after order. And then the client goes, I can't do this. This is why I got high.
Right.
And they go right back to using. And then we're in the cycle.
Right. Yeah. So what we do is we actually hold these meetings like an Al-Anon meeting, right? We've been doing this for 15 years. And so when I started it, I like Al-Anon. It's helped a lot of people, but then again, I'm not a huge fan for one simple reason. Everybody kind of sits around in a circle like we do in every other group. And one person tells their story, then it moves to the next person, and it moves to the next person. There's no crosstalk. There's no this, there's no that. Well, we do it a little differently here. I'm there every Wednesday night. I'm I'm the addict. I'm the guy that leads this train. We have seen, I don't know, thousands of families that have come through here in 15 years, but we crosstalk, we throw it out there. I'm pretty much a hard ass when it comes to this. There have been people that have come once or twice and not shown up again, and that's okay, because they don't have time to waste. I don't have time to waste, especially now during this fentanyl epidemic. This isn't prior to COVID anymore. This is the whole landscape of addiction has changed. But my point here is we've had people that have been coming for 7 years, 8 years, some 10 years and longer. And it's not that they have to keep coming. They want to keep coming. And most of them, their kids are doing fine, right? Or their loved one is doing fine. Some aren't, but this was designed to get the parent through this. But I wanted them to know every single aspect of what their loved one is capable of, not capable of. This is how the brain works. This situation is going to bring up this, that situation is going to bring up that. Okay. And you need to know. And yes, do you have to change you? Of course you do. And it's amazing how, and our parents love when new people come in because I've never met more ladies that are now friends and husbands that are playing golf together and doing this sort of thing because they don't feel alone in this nightmare anymore. But I will say this, for those that have, for lack of a better term, bailed on it, right? The majority of them are still in this nightmare. They're just like the phone call I got yesterday. I mean, they're still in it. And I just don't see, and again, this is a group that is free to the general public. I just don't see any of this style of support groups. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just missing it anywhere. I don't see it anywhere.
I'll tell you why. You said free to the general public. Treatment center owners don't like free. They also want a revolving door. They want people to come back through their, facility. And that's the problem with the business model is it's an end user business model. If you're a good treatment center, you don't want to see the client again. You want the client to be successful, of course, and move on. But there are so many places that don't want to offer extra services because if that client moves on, now they have to pay for a new lead, a new client. It's exhausting. It's constant. So I always say, very similar to what you're doing, I look forward to the day you fire me. That means You've moved on. You're doing great. And the best referral you can give me, or the best thing you can give me, is a referral from the next person that I can help. Right. So having a free group for parents is amazing because they're going to do the work. So their loved one is going to do the work and it's going to work. And that's why, most places that I've seen don't want family work. We have family day where they bring in McDonald's, which to me is useless.
Right.
Yeah. You've got that, or you have no family help at all. Some places don't even have aftercare. They send you off into the wild with the one therapy appointment 3 weeks out of a therapist you've never met, hoping you relapse and come back. So we even have a broken model there. There's very few treatment centers that are doing what you're doing, which is truly caring about the whole entire family system, not just the addict, the whole system.
Right. But let me explain a little bit on how this is set up. So PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, that's the nonprofit. Okay, that I started back in 2009. The treatment center is a different animal. It's not connected financially. It's not connected in any other way other than the fact that I'm an owner of the treatment center. But what we do is we kind of work in conjunction with each other. So it's not a requirement for the parent to come to the family group. And in fact, we probably have more parents that have not come through our treatment center. We started right in COVID, which was just a nightmare. Okay. We were halfway into getting everything rolling when COVID hit and we couldn't stop. We had to keep going. But so this is not a part of the treatment center per se. This is the nonprofit side. But again, look, everybody thinks nonprofits everything's supposed to be free anyway. And that's nonsense. Okay. Cause everybody has to keep their doors open. Right. But this is something I started because I wanted that to be free. I wanted people to come in to be able to sit there and get the educational piece on this, without having to, flip some money. Look, if I refer them to a counselor or outside group, yeah, they're going to have to pay for for those services. But I'll tell you something, Cali, this is, and we would love to be in other areas and get this going. This thing has been so successful, but I'm getting to my point. And it's this, because I can ramble for hours.
No.
Are you seeing a decrease in families that are calling? Are you seeing a decrease because treatment has changed, like I said, drastically since COVID? It seems like it just has almost bottomed out during this election year. And I know outside influences have an effect on what happens in what we do. I mean, has fentanyl changed the game so much? See, because in the old days, I was a prescription pill addict. That was my gig, right? And during the OxyContin mess and prior to that. And so because OxyContin and pills hit our area so extremely hard, like it did the rest of the country, phones are ringing off the hook. Families are calling. They don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. But have you seen any type of decrease in that? Because we have a little bit.
So I specialize, my company, Sober on Demand, specializes in the top 1% to 5% of executives. Okay. So we do executive detox. So most of what I'm seeing is an increase in alcohol. Yes. Alcohol and benzos are through the roof. Yeah. Before COVID, I had a lot of heroin. I had a lot of heroin fentanyl. Not so much anymore because we can do a Suboxone prescription for detox. So we don't get that I need an in-home detox concept. Right. But now it's been more alcohol.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And by the way, excuse me for asking, are you in LA or are you back in New Jersey?
I am in Florida at the moment.
Oh, you're in Florida. Oh, okay.
I'm in Florida, yeah. Okay. I'm bi-coastal, so I go back and forth between LA and here. Okay. And then I travel where my clients are. So my signature thing is a 5-day deep dive with clients where I do CBT, I do some NLP, I do memory reconstruction for trauma, I do life coaching. I have a whole chemical kit that we can tell you where your cortisol is, where your serotonin is, where your dopamine is. And then we do supplements to fix that. So it's chemical, emotional, trauma-based, sort of the whole gamut. So wherever they are, I fly to.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, Cali, man, you know what? I just love speaking with people like you because the way I've found that people are genuine is when they go, I love what I do, but I'd be totally great if I was out of business because it means we've done the work and the world has changed. Right. But if people want to connect with you, find out more about your books, reach out, what's the best way?
So soberondemand.com is the easiest one. The Addiction Coach online or the Addictions Academy. I have a whole training school where they can get trained in recovery coaching or intervention. We have 45 classes and CEUs for therapists, so they can find that there. And I am all over social media as Cali Estes.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson.
Cali, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I really like what you're doing. I love what you're doing, actually. And it's nice. It's nice to see someone that actually gives a shit. I mean, sorry, that's just me. But yeah, it's amazing what you're doing. You get it, obviously. And I just wish it nothing but the best. I really do. Hopefully we can connect somewhere down the line and maybe do something together. I don't know. Anything's possible, but keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Absolutely. And thank you all for either listening or watching. Yes, we are on YouTube. You can find us at Pain Nonprofit on YouTube and, of course, Apple Podcast and Spotify, where you can leave a rating, a review, and subscribe to all those platforms. And please spread the word if you are getting value out of Pains Don't Hide the Scars.